SAFM koketso sachane info songezo mabeke right here on SAFM Viewpoint. We continue in conversation with Peter Setou, Chief Executive of the Vumelana Advisory Fund, talking the Agri-Industrial Fund, thanks to the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development through the IDC. Of course, you as a land beneficiary have got access to funds that could possibly help you in increasing productivity on your land, accessing different markets, and just ensuring that you have a sustainable business. And Dr. Setou, earlier on, just before the break, you spoke of implementing agents, and in South Africa, unfortunately, Murena, with the challenges that we have witnessed, a figure of 1 billion rand and also implementing agencies raises the question of possible corruption. One cannot ignore that at all. Do we have safeguard measures? Do I, as a land claimant, skeptical in having seen what has been happening in the country, how can I confidently just go and apply and know that I stand a chance and it's not just about the politically connected?
Yeah, I think you're raising an important point, that there's a lot of fly-by-nights out there who masquerade as people who want to help our people, and we are also aware of many instances where our people have been taken for a ride. It's for that reason that we are saying we propose that they must be linked up with credible and experienced implementing partners who must be vetted, And my personal view really here is, if you've got an implementing partner who does not have a stake in the business, who himself or herself is actually not contributing towards the running of the business and it's contributing financially towards the running of the business, I think that may well also raise some concerns. And that's why, from our side as an organization, we always support communities and beneficiaries of land reform to structure these commercially viable partnerships with investors. In this instance, you would have investors who would also bring in some money into the kitty. I mean, just for a moment, if you had to think of this billion rand, if we were to make sure that with this billion rand, we can attract an additional billion rands or 2 billion rands through private investment, I think it will go a long way towards ensuring that we reach out to a lot more beneficiaries of land reform than it's currently planned. Because as it is now, one gets a sense that it's only this contribution that would be coming from the fund. And as we know, part of it is actually grant finance, is grant. The other part is actually loan funding. So we are advocating a scenario where we can make sure that this billion rands goes a long way. Maybe it can attract an additional, say, 2 billion rands in private investments. In that way, it becomes a win-win situation in the sense that government would achieve its stated intentions and by way of ensuring that the beneficiaries of land reform actually benefit. On the other hand, the investors would also benefit in the sense that they will partner with these communities and actually invest in this project.
You've got about 5 minutes to engage with Ndada Peter Setou, Chief Executive of the Vumelana Advisory Fund. I think it's such an important discussion to have, and us raising awareness around the existence of these funds that are able to assist you as an emerging farmer. Bongane, you are in Durban. Thanks for your call. Good evening.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Very well, Bongane. Go ahead.
Yes. You see, the main shortcoming of the government, the land reform is, if you can check, a lot of land that is in the hands of the community, those beneficiaries don't have title deeds. That's the first biggest weakness, because that means they cannot access the capital using the land as a secured structure. The second shortcoming is, most of the guys who are planting at home, I've seen them. They plant their crops. Most of them, they do cabbage, they do spinach, they do tomato, they do a lot of things. But crop get rotten at home because they don't have access to the market. So those are the critical aspects, in my view, they need to be attended to. I mean, they're very easy. It's just, it needs a goodwill on part of the government to assist the small-scale farmers. Because whatever they do, the mere fact that they get given the land, not given the title deed, it actually makes the mockery of the whole exercise.
Yeah, I think we got your point there, Bongani. Thank you very much for that. And that is the two very important questions, that of access to title deeds and also access to markets.
Yes. Well, the issue of title deeds, I mean, I agree with Bongani fully. I mean, it is important that beneficiaries must be given title deeds. I mean, most of our workers, Vumelana Advisory Fund happens to be in it's not so much in the redistribution arena. It's more with claims for restitution. We deal more with restitution. Now, we know that with restitution, what government does once they've investigated the claim and it's finalized, the communities would get title deeds for this land. But I think we are making this. The problem is actually, or the situation is much more complex than that. Because we've got many communities out there who have got title deeds, and yet they still cannot use those title deeds as a form, as security in order to secure finance. And the issue around broader access to finance is a sore point that needs to be addressed in this country. And I think we'll probably need just another session just to focus on issues around access to finance. But having said that, we are saying initiatives such as the Agri-Industrial Fund is a step in the right direction. Now, coming to the issue of access to markets, and for that reason, as Vumelana, that we are advocating that partnering with investors who have got the technical know-how, who have got access to finance, who have got access to markets, that is the most expedient way through which they can make sure that they put their land to proper and effective utilization.
Most definitely. Before we run out of time, we've got a couple of voice notes which we will allow you to answer or comment on. The Setou as the last word. Let's check out the voice notes.
Government have not clearly communicated the issue of land reform and agrarian reforms and how communities can access funding in terms of rural development. They have it good written on paper, but many of them cannot practically apply it on the ground, because most of these politicians who are talking about land reforms and rural development are staying in the suburbs in Sandton. They don't know what they are even talking about. KG.
Good evening, Gogetso. I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Peter there with regards to funding. Like, what conditions does the funding come with? Are there any conditions with regards to the funding, and what types of conditions? Because I'm running a poultry. I have 30,000 layers. I also, raise around 20,000 broilers. So I just like to know what conditions.
Gogetso and SAFM listeners, the issue of land in South Africa, we need to look at it in a dynamic manner. How do you have a government? In fact, people would claim, and after receiving the land, where do they get? They don't even get assistance from the government to assist them that this is what you have to do. In fact, I would say, even now, since we are talking about this issue, even Parliament would pass it. The issue of land is that our people need to be regroomed, to be taken back to their roots and be taught how to maintain this. And I would say the real partners here are the ones who control the land. If they would want to be partners with our people and come together as a society and work, you would see a success that would come out. It's just that there's arrogance. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your voice notes. Let's quickly, before you respond, and that there's a couple of other calls that we're getting. It seems like this topic is very, very important. Eugene, you're in Boksburg. We don't have much time, but quickly ask your question.
Okay, good evening. So quickly, my situation is that there is a land that found, it was abandoned, it was probably being used by a certain farmer, but he left the land, and we went there, and then we developed the land. Now we are utilizing the land for piggery, and we've got the markets, we've got everything, we've created the market, but now we can't get the title deed there for the land so that we can access the various types of funding that are offered by the government. Can Vumelana help in that situation where you found the land abandoned, you developed it, and then everything is working well, but you can't go on because you don't have a title deed?
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one there, Eugene in Boksburg, and maybe you can make note of that. Setou. Let's wrap up with a call from Gray. You're in the Free State. Hi.
No. I'm in the Eastern Cape.
You're in the Eastern Cape. Go ahead, Gray.
Yes. I just want to find out. Yeah. I was living in East London beginning of this year, and I moved to the rural area in the Eastern Cape. So basically, there's land that I'm working at. So I'm a self-established small farmer. I just started 6 months ago. I'm doing chickens and crop farming, potatoes, which I started in 2 hectares. But then there's about 40 hectares, that belongs to my family, which my grandfather has papers for it. But now, in a few years back, before I think 4 or 5 years ago, there was a project funded by I don't know whether the government or the local municipality. But now, we, in a way, since that project, it came and it died. The people are not really doing much, But, on our land, we are not being allowed to actually farm on it. When we want to do something, we are being told by, the people are in charge now, we have to go there and there. It's like, we have papers for land that belongs to us. Well, my grandfather, but in a way, he's just not allowed to do what he wants to do on his land. How do you sort that out? Because, as I say, it was funded by, I think the government somehow, because they were giving tractors. There are pipes. Okay. All the irrigation system, it was some, people were employed and everything, but we never got anything out of that.
All right, let's do this, Gray. Stay on the line, or rather, just keep listening on the radio. And that is quite a number of people needing assistance there. And I do have, just to go back to that question around the qualifying criteria, I do have the IDC website open, so I can share with that information. But are you able to respond to some of the questions that have been raised, and maybe possibly even in the end provide us with your email address for those who would like to get assistance from Vumelana?
Thank you, Kuketo. I cannot agree more with the questions that have been raised. And I can fully agree that government has to communicate a lot better with beneficiaries so that our people can know exactly what's out there, so that they can take advantage of the schemes that government actually offer. Secondly, we need to find a better way through which our people can be assisted, because it's one thing to avail these schemes, but it's something else to take advantage of them. And for that reason, we need to have competent people who can actually assist our people in this regard. There was an issue around the conditions with regard to funding, and the fact that people don't have title deeds. It is a fact, and I think I've raised that earlier on, that the issue of broader access to finance is indeed a big challenge for the country. There's a need to engage with the formal finance sector in order to address some of those. I am aware that there's been some work behind the scenes to try and address that, but I think it is crucial that as South Africans we must engage with such processes. With regard to who actually qualifies, I would maybe in conclusion say the best thing that callers could do is to actually go to the IDC website so that they can read more about this fund. As I've said, it's a blended instrument which is based on a billion grant from the department. It provides a grant portion and an IDC loan to black producers or majority black-owned agricultural enterprises. So this will run over a period of 5 years, which more or less it means we are looking at about 200 million rands per annum to support the beneficiaries. The objective of the fund, as it is to develop and actually implement high-impact, large-scale commercial agricultural transactions and projects that have a minimum of 60% black ownership, including broad-based community trust structures. So just to conclude, it's not everyone who will actually benefit or who will qualify to get assistance from this fund. I think that needs to be cleared. There are other ways and means through which beneficiaries of land reform could be assisted. And as I've said, as Vumelana, we also assist beneficiaries of land reform. However, we also have our own criteria in terms of whom can we assist, etc., etc. I mean, just to give you an example, the kind of projects that we would be willing to support are projects which more or less could create or save 100 jobs or more. So those are the kind of projects that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at projects which are really focusing on people in the rural areas, which are addressing the plight of poor people. Those are the projects that we'll be willing to look at. We'll be looking at the projects where the investment that would be raising would be, say, in the region of 5-10 million rands and above. That's typically what we would be looking at. So
let's conclude that.
Our contact details is info@vumelana.org.za. info@vumelana.org.za. You can also visit our website www.vumelana.org.za.
We appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you very much for making time to speak to us. Peter Setou, Chief Executive of the Vumelana Advisory Fund. And again, the IDC website, idc.co.za, is where you can find more information around the Agri-Industrial Fund. And maybe we can, in the next few minutes, Leseho, tweet a link to the site itself at SAFM Radio, is where you can find it, and then I will retweet at Koketso Sachane. With 22 minutes before we get to the top of the hour, this is The Viewpoint on SAFM. Koketso in for Songezo.
Play your part.